Hi, I'm Carl Stabe of Domino Connection. Today I have Laura Roeder with me, and she is a master storyteller. She's amazing at social media, and she's a lot of fun to be around. So I had to have her on. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Very, very happy to be here today.
So tell us a little bit about your backstory, how you got started. I know you started in website design and then moved over to social media, but I want to hear straight from you and then a nice little tidbit.
Yeah, I was doing website design and print design for local businesses in Chicago, where I lived at the time. And I would help them not just design their website, but figure out who's going to be visiting it, what purpose does it serve, more kind of online marketing-y type stuff I see now. In retrospect, I thought that's what you did when you made a website for someone. And around 2008, 2009, social media started to be a really big deal. People started getting on Twitter in 2008. Facebook pages probably came out like in late 2009, and people were really interested in how can I use social media for my business. And so I just started talking to people about this, talking to my web design clients about this, and then people kept telling me, you seem to really get this whole social media thing. People would pay you just to tell them about social media. And I thought, I don't have to make a website for someone. I can just talk to them about Twitter and someone's going to pay me for that. Like, sign me up. That sounds amazing. That sounds way easier than what I'm doing now. So that's how I started doing social media consulting, and that turned into social media training. And now I'm launching social media software. So that's kind of my evolution, I guess.
Awesome. Awesome. So you don't have any software out yet, right?
Yeah, kind of. It hasn't really officially launched yet. It's brand new. It's called Edgar, meetedgar.com.
Oh, I've seen you talk about that. I get your newsletter and okay,
Yeah,
cool.
it's still kind of covert right now, but you can go to the website and see all about it.
Cool. So, the next thing that a lot of people probably are curious about is, what do you do then as you are, kind of building this out and you're thinking, okay, what are my next steps? How do you navigate that ship and make sure you're heading in the right direction?
I mean, one thing, that I always think is important to remember is that unless you're psychic, which is awesome if you are, and I'm really jealous, unless you're psychic, you don't know how anything is going to work out. We're all just throwing out ideas, throwing out new things, and seeing how they work. So that's one thing I always try to keep in mind, is not to stress too much about taking the right path, because I can make educated decisions and I can learn and I can talk to people, but we never really know how anything is going to work out. So I try to remember that, combined with, I'm really big on the idea of, okay, where do I want to be in the future? How can I start building that today? How can I get myself closer to where I want to be? So I knew for me, I wanted a more scalable business model than just doing one-on-one consulting. So I thought, okay, I could try doing an online program. I can still do consulting. I'm not going to have tons of people. It's not going to be a whole huge business when it starts, but I can try to start one and I can see if anyone signs up, and then that'll get me closer to my goal. So that's kind of how I view it. Am I taking actions today that are like the actions of a person or a business? That's where I want to be later.
Mm. So if you're okay, then as you're taking actions and then you're starting to say, okay, we're moving forward, how do you measure that? How do you say, yeah, this is working or not working?
That's an interesting question because, obviously one of the ways to measure is, are you making money? Are people paying for it? But it can be hard. You really have to get good at honing in on where your problem is that you need to fix. I think that's one of the most crucial skills that you can have as an entrepreneur, because often people look at, okay, I'm not making any money, and they think they're doing marketing wrong. But really their offer is so confusing that no one knows what it is. Like, they're doing a great job drawing people in and building their list, but their offer is really confusing. And they think, oh, I need to build up my list more, but that's actually not where the problem lies.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people think it's kind of advanced, but it's really not. There's a lot of tools you can use, like analytics or Kissmetrics, or, putting heat maps on your website, where you can really start to see, where are people clicking on my website? Where are they going? Or just good old fashioned talking to people.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you would be interested in this offer, but I see you didn't sign up. Why did it not feel like a match for you? Just digging deeper into your business and seeing why things aren't working. I went a little off the rails from your original question, but same topic, I guess.
No, because it's true though, right? Like you say, okay, I do web design, right? And then you throw it out there, and people are like, yeah, that's cool, but they don't really bite. But if
Right.
you ask why not, at least you can start to get some feedback instead of just saying, okay, this sucks. I'm doing it all wrong. I need more
Mm-hmm.
people to come to my site instead of, like you said, improving your offer. Yeah.
Yeah, and I find that we're often pretty off base with how we think we're being perceived or what we think the customer wants. Customers often think in different details that you do. Like maybe you're a web designer and maybe to you it's just obvious that you make WordPress websites because everyone makes WordPress websites. So you don't even really mention it. You're just like, I make websites. But someone's going to your site being like, okay, I know I need a WordPress theme, and I'm not seeing the word WordPress theme on their headline. They must not be the right designer for me. Little tweaks like that can be really important.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny though, like you get so caught up in your own business, you don't even realize that is a disconnect. Yeah. Yeah. I've made many mistakes and still making a lot of mistakes just like that. So, uh, I like the idea of testing this out, but sometimes as a, personality type, I'm part introvert, part extrovert, depending on the day. But
Hmm.
I want to know what type of, are you introverted or extroverted? And then how do you navigate that when you're trying to do an interview or launch a new product?
Yeah, it's an interesting question for me right now because I am launching something totally new. I'm working on launching the social media software that I mentioned, and I've never made software before. I've never marketed it before, so it's been a really interesting experience. Really, kind of getting to start in a whole new field and apply what I know about marketing and see if it works. I'm definitely like an introvert extrovert mix as well. I mean, I love talking to people. But I'm also an only child, so I kind of have that thing where I'm used to spending a lot of time by myself, and I like spending time by myself. It's interesting, like my husband is actually pretty shy, but he likes to be around people all the time. Maybe he doesn't want to be like the star of the show, but it's just interesting seeing that comparison because he gets like a little lonely if he's by himself too much, even if there's not a ton of interaction. It's really interesting. So I like to talk to people. But I've always kind of marketed like my existing business has been around kind of me as the face of the business, which I think is a really smart way to do it because people really like to connect with a person. But I've chosen not to do that for my new business, Edgar. I'm not really part of it. I mean, I'll be promoting it and doing interviews and podcasts and stuff to promote it, but my picture is not on the homepage or anything like that, or it is with my current business. And so that's been sort of interesting. Like I kind of like being able to take that step back where it's not so much like about me and doesn't involve me so much, and I can really put the focus more on the product.
And is that a strategic expansion because you can take it in multiple ways instead of having your label on it?
Yeah, I think it is. I think when you do a business that's kind of marketed around you, you really see all the pros and cons. And I've been able to grow my business bigger than just me. I have a small team. I'm not doing any consulting. I'm not doing any services. So you can definitely scale a personality-based business, and you can scale a business based on a person's name. I mean, I always like to look at fashion labels. A lot of fashion labels are still called the name of the designer that either doesn't design anymore or has been dead for 100 years in some cases. And, clearly they've made that name live on. So it is possible. But you do have to keep a certain presence in the business, and even the biggest names with the biggest businesses still have to make appearances or just, keep a certain presence there. And it's really interesting to me, the idea of a business that you can maybe sell someday or just take more of a step back from, just find really talented people to run it entirely.
So more vision oriented instead of action oriented.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. I hadn't thought of it that way.
I like that. Cool. Okay, so as people are listening, I'm curious about what is one secret that you've been able to apply that has allowed you to build connections with people that might surprise people?
I mean, something that I've really learned is if you have a natural rapport with someone, if you have sort of a natural liking with someone, there's no faking that and there's no substituting that. And those are the people that you're going to build relationships with. So I think when I was younger and I was kind of just started networking, I would think, oh, I really should be connected to that person. You know, like they're an important person in the industry or they'd be good for me to know or whatever. And then I would meet them and, you know, maybe not like I didn't like them, but we just didn't have that vibe. And I would think, oh, you know, how can I, this is hard. Like, how can I form a relationship with them? Because it feels like a struggle. And now I just get along with the people I get along with. And I just kind of move past if we don't seem to have that initial connection. It's much less strategic, but it's really amazing all the connections and all the different ways that they pan out. And the thing is, like, people help each other and people do favors for each other, and they do favors for people that they genuinely like, not people that they feel. I mean, sometimes I guess you're trying to do something for someone for something in exchange. Like, it doesn't usually work out very well. And it's not the most important people, you know, or the biggest influencers that will help you the most. It really isn't. It's just the people where they're your friend and you get along and you guys help each other and you guys mention each other's businesses and give each other referrals when you can. So I've just sort of given up being strategic about it. I'm like, I'm going to hang out with people that I like and talk to people that are interesting to talk to.
Yeah. No, I like that because I found business should be playful, right? And if it feels like you're slodging through mud, then it's just like it wears on you. And you're, you know, and there are big players where you're like, yeah, like a referral from them would be huge, but a referral that comes from the heart from somebody that really connects with you is probably more powerful than some big player that says, hey, go check out Carl, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true because, it'll be so much more genuine and you just never know where those connections lie. Someone who's, you know, not important will end up being friends with someone who writes for the biggest magazine in your industry. And so they mention your name to them and then, you know, you're the cover story. I mean, that's how these things take place. It's really organic. You really can't predict it at all.
And it comes back to putting yourself out there, right? Like going up to people and saying, hey, you know, you got great stuff, and doing stuff for free. And it's hard to do. Like not in a, you don't want to be too strategic, right? Like you say, you don't want to be weird about it, but you want to be like just cool and say, hey, like this is great stuff. And you talk to them and you tweet stuff about what they do. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, one little secret, I guess, that I have, and it's something that I teach in my Creating Fame program, is always approaching people as a peer instead of a fan. And that's a mistake that I see a lot. People come up to someone that they like and, you know, they just stick with the fan side. Actually, this happened, like sometimes I go to conferences and some people will introduce themselves that have been reading my newsletter or something, and they won't tell me anything about themselves. Like they'll come up to me and they'll be like, I just wanted to let you know that I love your newsletter. And they'll be like, okay, so I'm not going to bother you anymore. And I'm like, what? Like, no, like, let's have a real conversation. Like, I love you. You know?
Tell me about your dog or your kids or,
Right. You know, like, don't assume that the person, it's not really very fulfilling to have, I mean, it's nice to be complimented, don't get me wrong, but these sort of like drive-by compliments don't really mean a lot. And you're certainly never going to form a relationship that way. So, you know, I'm not saying not to compliment people. It's always really nice to be like, I love this blog post, I read your newsletter every week, but then move on to like a real human conversation, you know?
Yeah. But it's funny, like a simple social cue that has been around for thousands of years is still a struggle for people. You know?
Yeah, because they feel like, oh, this person is so important. Like, this is just some rant. Like, like, we're internet people. Like, none of us are important in any. No one knows who we are out of this like 100-person circle. I'm not very important, you know.
Yeah, if we died, you know, some people would cry, but they'd get over it, you know. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, you know, for me though, what I found is, I think if you have, and it comes back to that playfulness, like. I want to talk to somebody and I want to find out more about them and not just like compliment. I do though is I start with a compliment because it's a good icebreaker and it shows like, oh, this person knows who I am. But then I like to ask questions because then
Mhm.
it's like then you find out about them and you try to find similarities with that person.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just like you would, if you're at a networking event, you're coming up to a stranger. That's what you do. You start making small talk, you
Hmm.
start making conversation. That's what you want to do with anyone you admire or anyone that you want to meet.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. So this is one question that I ask everybody, and it's the hardest question I have, but
Ooh.
I think you can handle it. What's the secret to happiness?
Oh, wow. I was not expecting that. I think the secret to happiness is, just on an everyday basis, making sure that you're actually living the life that you want to live. I mean, it's cliche, it's talked about a lot, but it's true that I think everyone has to fight this tendency to be like later, 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 later. Later I'm going to take time off work. Later I'm going to actually prioritize my health. Later I'm going to actually prioritize my family. And it's a habit that you can make at any time. Like I've been living in the UK and now I'm back in America where I have a car, and I didn't have a car in London, and it's so easy once you have a car to drive places that I would, just laugh at someone for driving when I lived in London, somewhere like a half mile away. I'm like, oh, because I'll tell myself I don't have time to walk, it's gonna take too long to walk. I'll just drive, and that's such a bad habit. It's good for me to have 10 minutes not staring at a computer, taking a walk outside. But it's easy to tell ourselves the story, oh, I'm busy, I don't have time, I'm just going to drive, instead of doing something that makes us happy, like taking a little walk. So making those decisions like, you know what, no, I'm going to walk instead of drive. I can spare the 10 minute, although I was walking home and I was late for this interview. Maybe I should have driven to that in general. So yeah, just, making sure that your daily life is really matching up to what you want, and not just saying, oh, someday those things are going to happen.
Yeah, yeah. And that's, it's hard to do, right? Because things change, our views change, and then you feel like you're chasing your own tail sometimes. But I think for me, what's been a huge help is in yoga and meditation.
Mm.
I don't know if you practice any of that, but just the idea of like sitting on a cushion for like 10 minutes and your brain's like going in 100 different directions and you're just like, whoa, like, and if you just let go of all that, like a walk, right? Like you just enjoy it, look
Yeah.
around and not get caught up too much in your head. You realize how great life is, and and you're lucky to be in this great connected world. And then you start to say, okay, this is fun, and you stop worrying so much. And then
Yeah.
go ahead, your turn.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's just so much unnecessary worry, that like I was actually thinking about it the other day. I was out at dinner last night, and the waiter like said the wrong thing. Like he came by and said like what you say when we're leaving, but we weren't leaving yet. He was just sort of on waiter autopilot, and he got so embarrassed. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And you could tell that he was really embarrassed every time he came back to the table. And I just thought about how embarrassing that is. Like, it is so embarrassing when you say goodbye, when you meant to say hello. Just like the stupidest little thing we'll think about later. Like, oh, I can't believe I said that. That was so embarrassing. And you see when you're on the other end how just no one cares at all. Like how it could not have mattered to us less.
10 seconds later, you forgot about it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't matter. And we put like this insane pressure on ourselves and all this worry all the time about are we doing it right? And are we pleasing other people? And other people are just not even noticing all these things that we're obsessing about.
Yeah. It like comes back to like, you have a little, you have a little fame on the internet, right? And people come up and they're almost embarrassed to say hi to you.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a second, like, I'm just a regular person. Like, this is, just have fun with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, real celebrities don't feel any different. Like, they're regular people with regular lives, too. They really are. I mean, how do you think that their daily life is so different from yours? It's really not.
Yeah, they've done studies where, like, you earn $50,000, you're much happier than 20,000. But from like 50 to like 100 million isn't that much different. Like, you still stress about things. You still have kids that have trouble potty training and all that stuff, you know? And it's just day to day. And you're just like, okay, this is my life, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Absolutely.
So now that happiness thing is a big part of your business. And I want to kind of talk a little bit about your hiring. And you talked about this at Pioneer Nation where you spoke.
Mm-hmm.
And you're creating a course around this,
Mm-hmm.
how to teach people how to do this. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess number one is, what's the number one thing you have to look for when you try to hire somebody and grow your business? And then what's that next step after that?
Yeah. So yeah, the course. If you go to hireyourfirst.com, you can check out the course. The first thing to look at is to look at yourself. Just like when you are trying to attract a great spouse, attracting a great employee is very similar in that you can't be a shoddy partner and expect to find a great one. You know, and it's the same with employing people. You can't be a shoddy boss and expect to have a really great employee. And it is this huge challenge and growth in being a clear communicator, you know, having so much of it is in clarity, I think, when you're managing other people. Just keeping the lines of communication really open, being really clear and direct and honest with your feedback, and also being really encouraging at the same time. I mean, it can definitely be a hard balance to hit, but I see so many people that are like, oh, I've tried to hire people and they've all been a nightmare and, you know, they don't listen to me. But you have to look inwards first about how you're creating that situation. Are you being difficult? Are you being confusing? Are you changing your mind every 5 seconds? Can they not find anything anywhere because you've made it all so complicated? Are you not? A really common one is you're not giving them the whole picture. You give them this little task, but they have no idea what else is going on in your business and what you're doing. You know, a lot of people have this idea like that a bad boss is just someone really cruel, and they're like, well, I'm not mean. I'm not screaming at anyone, but not sharing information with them is just as painful as yelling at them, you know, as far as getting work done. So that's step one.
And then how do you find people that you are really attracted to, meaning like the skills that they have, and actually, because you can find people who are amazing at things, but they don't fit with you because there's a little bit of a clash. Could be personality, could be, skills are too similar. How do you find that person that's a good fit for you?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is to get clear on what you want them to do. And I know that can be a challenge when you're starting out. It can feel really overwhelming. So just start with a few little areas that you know you don't want to do. For me, customer service was a really easy one. I really hated doing it. I was really bad at doing it. I wouldn't get back to people on time. So that was just like an obvious one. So don't make it so difficult for yourself. Just start with something really obvious and go aim high in what you're looking for. You know, I see a lot of people, because they're so concerned with just cheap, they're like, I need someone to do customer service for as cheap as possible. And that's their criteria for who they're going to hire. And I understand, you're a small bootstrap business, you're not on this multi-million-dollar budget, but, maybe you need to think about the like $12 an hour instead of the $5 an hour overseas or something like that. Don't settle for someone who you think is like kind of okay at what they do. And a lot of areas like administrative work or customer service, a lot of people have those skills. They're traditionally low paid jobs because a lot of people have the skills. That's how the economics works out. So don't settle for someone who you don't think is really, really great at talking to people. That sounds really obvious, but a lot of people hire VAs or assistants and stuff that they're not like really confident, like this person is really great at making websites, but I'm going to hire them to make a website for me because they're okay and they're cheap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think you make a really good point, because if you shoot high and you get a couple notches lower, you're still going to be okay compared to if you shoot low and you actually get low, you're going to get shoddy work.
Yeah. And, you might have to do some training, but someone... I look for people that are quick and clever above everything else, because you can train people who are really clever, to do just about anything,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
and people that are motivated to learn, people that are excellent at Googling.
Mm-hmm.
Googling is a really, really important skill.
Knowing how to do it right. Yes. Yeah.
Yes, because you can figure out just about anything on Google. You really, really can.
Yeah.
So that's not a joke. I really do look for people who are really good at that. So yeah, just look for someone who you would like to work with. It does have to be a personality fit. And I haven't. A lot of people go the virtual assistant route. I haven't had great luck like fishing in that pool. I find I've gotten all my people from kind of like real job listings, whether that's on a more traditional job site or it can be something like Odesk. I found my customer service person who also does like some admin stuff. I found her on Odesk, but she wasn't marketing herself as VA. She was just someone on Odesk looking for extra work, looking for a work from home job.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had much better success there. They can be a little more devoted to your business. You know, VAs are running their own VA business, so they always need to be finding more clients or increasing their rates. That's how they grow their business.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. I like that. Hey, do you have a feedback loop in place? I'm curious. And the reason I ask is I have a passion site called Work Happy Now, and a lot of it's basically happiness and how, employees can be happier at work. And one of the big things is feedback. I was just curious if you have that.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a lot of them actually. So our structure is that I have a one-on-one meeting with everyone on the team every month, and that's not a review. That's like just a sort of time set aside to chat because it doesn't always happen with everyone. Some people I work a lot more closely with than others. So we just take half an hour. I usually ask them, what's stressful for you lately? Like, what's your favorite task that you've been doing lately? Like, where have you gotten caught up? Or how is the workflow going with this person? Or what are you enjoying about this? What are you hating about this? Like, what do you wish you didn't have to do anymore? Just kind of hearing their feedback about their position. And we also do like more formal reviews regularly as well.
No, one thing we can talk about this after the interview too, but have a forum that is basically where, like, if you have a Google form and you can basically have them go and fill that out, and it can be anonymous. Well, I mean, I guess there's only you have a small team, you can probably figure it out pretty quick.
Yeah.
But a lot of times if they're talking to you, you're the boss, right? And I guess if you can pull it out of them, eventually they start telling you the truth. But a lot of times they don't, and you're like, just let me know what's going on. Like, just be honest with me. But you'd be surprised how they're just like, oh, I'll tough it out. She doesn't need to know that,
Yeah, it's a huge problem, and one that I didn't really realize at first because I just thought, like, I'm easy to talk to, who's not going to tell me things. So the formal reviews are actually all done by the project manager at my company. So that sort of adds another layer where maybe she's still like their boss in some way, but she doesn't own the company. So it's maybe a little less intimidating. And we have found that it's a bit easier for people to be totally transparent with her than it is with me. And it's also just you have to, actions speak louder than words. If you tell people they can be totally open with you, but then they are, and then it doesn't go so well, that's not going to happen again. So you really have to be careful that you're really considering their feedback and taking action on it, and they can see that that's happening rather than you just saying, oh, you can tell me anything, but then they do, and either it backfires or you just do nothing. Maybe they tell you they want something in place to make their job easier, and you're like, that's a good idea, but then nothing happens.
Yeah. Okay, so we're winding down the interview, and this has been great stuff. You've been fantastic. Thank you. What is one change you've made in the past year that has really helped you, galvanize your community, turn more of like visitors into fans, and really get them excited about the work you do?
There's one change that I've made. Well, something that I'll tell you one example that I have mixed feelings on, actually. So, people really love photos. Like part of the whole like personal branding, personal connection thing, people love to see photos. And I don't really like to take photos. Like I'm just not a photo person. I never take them on my own. And I've been traveling lately and I've been taking, like, making sure to take photos every week to put in my newsletter. And people absolutely love it. And we get a great response to it. And because it just makes people feel like they know you, you know, when they see little snapshots from your life. But I actually feel very torn about it because I don't do it naturally and I don't really like to do it. I kind of make myself do it so I can put it in the newsletter. And so then I haven't been doing it now that I've not been traveling. So, like, I'll give you sort of a vague answer on that because I think it works, but I still have to find that balance myself because I feel like I should do it in a way that I actually like, and I haven't really found that yet.
I wonder, and yeah, this is where your brand of Laura Roeder is like you almost have to put yourself in there. You can't say, hey, employees, take pictures and let's put those in there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's an example of something that really has to be me. Like, one, we don't have an office, so I mean, people would just be having to take pictures of their own houses. Like maybe if we had an office or, you know, if I had a clothing line, people could take pictures of the clothes, but there's not really anything to take a picture of. And I don't have any employees where I live and I don't hire someone to follow me around and take pictures of me.
That would be cool. That would be like your own hired paparazzi. Wow.
Yeah. That could be the solution to my problem, actually, because then I wouldn't have to take them myself.
You just take enough, like hire them 2 hours, enough for the month, and then there you go.
And I could pretend I'm in different places.
Change outfits. That would be funny.
Okay.
Well, this has been great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been really fun.
Yeah. So where can they go and what can we pimp out? LKRsocialmedia.com?
Yes, exactly. Okay. LKRsocialmedia.com. The new software is meetedgar.com.
Okay, perfect. And then the new course for hiring someone?
Hireyourfirst.com.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. This has been great.
Thank you.